1. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the County Council. Today's February 3rd, and we're going to start with a proclamation recognizing annual Delta Sigma Theta Sonority Inc. Day by Council members Shevra Evans and Lorianne Sales. Please, all the Deltas come forward. Council members, take it away.
Move over to the right. They say, move over to the, okay. Let's move back a little bit. Yes, solidarity with our council colleagues. Thank you so much. I'll let you kick off. I'll start it off. It's been truly an honor and a pleasure to host Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated today at the Montgomery County Council as the official Delta Day. Deltas have been around for quite some time. I'll let my colleague kind of go into more details, but I am also a member of the Divine Nine, so they are my sisters in service. I'm proud to gather with them here today. They are always purposeful. They are always community-driven, organized, and I just deeply respect them. And I say thank you to you all for your leadership and your commitment to serve all of our residents here in Montgomery County. And thank you to my sister in service and council member Evans for joining me to host the 4th annual Delta Days at the County Council. We just had a very enlightening breakfast where we heard about their top 3 priorities, focusing on our senior community, ensuring that our seniors are able to age in place, also focusing on the health and wellness and ensuring education is part of the information that we share with our residents, talking about home ownership and tax credits. And last but certainly not least, we are going to be having a data center meeting here in the community at the County Executives Building at 7:00 p.m. So please tune in. It will be live streamed, or you can join us in person to have your voice heard. So thank you so much for sharing your top priorities. I also want to thank the 2 presidents that have joined us here this morning, President Nina Abdul-Wakil of the Montgomery County Alumni Chapter, and President Daphne Page Reeves of the Potomac Valley Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. You may have attended some of the events that this sorority has led across the county, namely the annual World AIDS Day event that happens at the end of the year, the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service activities, and also the jazz concert or brunch that raises money for scholarships for our deserving and high achieving seniors. So thank you to the Montgomery County Alumni Chapter for their exceptional efforts. You may have also attended other events like the Lobster Bake, which benefits scholarship and public service programs, or the Montgomery County Affordable Housing Conference, the Minerva Entrepreneurship Awards, or the Black Voices and Votes, the Power of Community Initiative, some of the events hosted by the Potomac Valley Alumni Chapter. So my sorors are out and about. They are championing social action, sisterhood, and public service. And I couldn't be more proud to celebrate Black History Month, 113 years of sisterhood and scholarship and social action with this sorority. And we are just grateful for their continued efforts. As we are seeing what's happening across the country, we know that we have to ensure that we don't forget the plights of our ancestors, and we prioritize not erasing history, but making history. And so every day that we show up, we encourage others to vote and be involved in their community. We are living out the goals and the priorities and the mission of our 22 founders. And so now I think we're going to hear from our two presidents, and then we're going to read the proclamation. So we will start with President Nina Abdul-Wakil and then Sora Daphne Page Reeves.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sales. Thank you. Great. They're just too tall. It is my pleasure to be here and to continue the collaboration with the County Council, with the Montgomery County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We were established in the county in 1970, and we have been working for the community ever since. It has been our honor and pleasure to partner with you in so many ways to affect the lives every day of Montgomery County residents. From youth to seniors, we offer services and programs that support their lived experience, to elevate them, to elevate their families, to take them to a new height so that they can be productive, active, and engaged citizens in our county. This work is not light, and we are grateful that the county understands that, hears our priorities, works with us, and does the work. So thank you to the council. Thank you to Council Member Evans and Sales for hosting us today. And this will not be the last. It will be just the fourth Delta Days at the County Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sora Abdul-Wakil. And now we hear from our another president.
Thank you so much. Wow, my sister president really said it all. Again, my name is Daphne Page Reeves, president of Potomac Valley Alumni Chapter. Thank you so much for having us today. To the council, to Council Member Sales, to Council Member Evans, thank you so much for this proclamation, but for the opportunity to sit down and talk about the priorities within Montgomery County. We in Delta Sigma Theta definitely are about scholarship, service, social action, and our priorities today that we presented definitely accentuate all those that happen in Montgomery County. So not to forego everything that my sister president has said, Potomac Valley Alumni Chapter has worked for 40 years in Montgomery County. We were chartered on April 27, 1985, and we have been working ever since, very hard, advocating for the members of Western Montgomery County. So thank you again for this proclamation, and we look forward to working with you this year, continuing to work with you this year, and to be back next year for the 5th annual Delta Day. Thank you.
So at this time, we will now read the proclamation. Whereas Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated was founded on January 13, 1913 by 22 African-American collegiate women studying at Howard University, the founders of the sorority envisioned an organization committed to sisterhood, scholarship, service, and social action. Their first act of public service was participating in the suffrage march of 1913, and
whereas 113 years later, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has become one of the preeminent service-based sororities with more than 350,000 initiated members and over 1,050 charter chapters worldwide. The theme for the work of the sorority for this biennium is One Delta, One Mission, anchored in legacy, evolving with intention, and
whereas the Montgomery County Alumni and the Potomac Valley Alumni chapters have fulfilled the mission of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in Montgomery County for well over 50 years, providing an extensive array of public service initiatives through its 5-point programmatic thrust: economic development, educational development, international awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and political awareness and involvement, and
whereas members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated are leaders in the community throughout Montgomery County and the state of Maryland. Deltas hold elected offices in state and local government and on the Board of Education. And the first African American United States Senator from Maryland is the Honorable Angela Also Brooks, also a Delta. Additionally, many members are prominent business leaders, educators, entrepreneurs, and community activists. And
whereas Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is at the forefront of social action across the nation, from launching a nationwide Get Out the Vote campaign, encouraging Americans to turn out on Election Day, to serving as co-plaintiff with the Legal Defense Fund in 2 lawsuits challenging restrictive voting legislation in Texas and Georgia, to condemning the expulsion of the Tennessee lawmakers who were exercising their right to protest, to reaffirming their stance on women's fundamental right to make decisions related to their reproductive health. The sorority continues to confront challenges that face not only African Americans, but all Americans. And
whereas the impact of the sorority is felt every day in Montgomery County through a wide range of service programs such as Delta Academy, Delta Gems and Embody, STEM and reading programs, voter registration, and community conversations with elected officials, MLK Day of Service, and various health and wellness programs, including the annual World AIDS Day Solidarity for Health Equity Breakfast and the Black Maternal Health Day of Service. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a pillar of service and support in our county, and we look forward to your continued service for years to come.
now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby celebrates the Montgomery County Alumni Chapter and the Potomac Valley Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated on the 4th annual Delta Day at the County Council, and be it further resolved that you have our commitment as partners in your ongoing efforts to improve the quality of life for all residents across Montgomery County. So it's presented on this 3rd day of February in the year 2026, signed by myself, Lori and Councilmember Lori Ann Sales, and President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. Yeah.
Thank you so much to the Delta Sigma Theta Sonority for coming today. Next, we are gonna move forward with a proclamation recognizing Transit Equity Day by the County Council's Transportation and Environment Committee. Those of you who are coming for that proclamation, please move forward. Thank you.
This is the first time Glenn's demurring. I know. Seriously, come on up. A little tired. Come on. Okay. I tell you. If you are here for Transit Equity Day, please come on down. As people are still in transit today. Notably, that's right. That's right. I am pleased to join my colleagues on the Transportation and Environment Committee in recognizing Transit Equity Day, which is a recognition of a civil rights trailblazer from Montgomery, Alabama. And that is Rosa Parks. Back in 1955, heroically, famously, not giving up her seat to make sure that everybody had equal access to public transportation. And all of these years later, we continue fighting and pushing for fair transportation policies, for equal access. And here in Montgomery County, as of June of this year, we have fast, free, and frequent bus service. A continuation of that long struggle to make sure that cost is not a barrier to public transportation. And since buses have become free, ridership has increased 5.4%. And riders have saved about $1,200 a year because of our policy. And here in Montgomery County, we provide so many programs to help residents in need. We provide rental assistance, we provide health insurance, and sometimes we need to help people where they're at. And it's quite literally at the bus stop for so many of our residents. So I'm proud to be here with my colleagues on the Transportation and Environment Committee, and we'll invite them up, and then we'll have representatives from the Department of Transportation share some additional comments. So I'll go to Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom.
Good morning, everyone. So I know that it's been a rough week for all commuters, and I just want to say thank you to our Department of Transportation, Director Conklin, for all the work that everybody's done this week. We're going to take a deeper dive into it this afternoon and talk about lessons learned. But as tough as it's been for commuters, the brunt of this has really fallen to transit riders. And when we look at the obstacles that transit riders often have to go through every day, this week has been a tremendous reminder of how important it is for the county government and the state government to pay attention to making sure that we have safe, reliable, convenient transit for everyone. And this is a good reminder. Today is a great reminder of that. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. Kate Stewart, District 4 rep on the council. I'm so glad to be here today to serve on the Transportation and Environment Committee. And in particular, as Councilmember Sales just said, as we were doing the proclamation for the Deltas, too much in our country right now, we are seeing the erasure of history. Particularly history, Black history, which is American history. And today we are lifting up Rosa Parks. And we do this twice a year. On December 1st, the day, as Chair Glass said, she refused to move her seat. And we do it this week because tomorrow is Rosa Parks' birthday. And so we remember her twice a year, and it's important that we remember her and everyone who took steps for equity in our community. And as we talked about, as the Chair Glass mentioned, we do have free ridership on our buses, which is terrific. And this council, and I want to say thank you to Director Conklin for all his work in our regional efforts to make sure that we have sustainable funding for our WMATA system, for our metro buses and our metro system, because without a strong transit system, we cannot have transit equity. We cannot ensure that people are able to access and get to where they need to go, to doctor's appointments, to visit relatives, to work and school, and all those things. So thank you to my colleagues on the council and to everyone who's working for transit equity.
And as was noted, this is a partnership, and now I'll invite the Department of Transportation to provide some comments. Director Conklin, start with you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to this today. It's really important that we commemorate the role of transit and lifting up our community and providing access to opportunity for all. I want to talk about a couple of things. One, in terms of our operation, we're providing more service, safer service, better quality service, and more people are using it than any time in the last 5 years. And I think that's a hallmark of the investment Montgomery County makes in making sure all of its residents have access to opportunity, those in particular who don't have cars or unable to afford cars and need these services to get to work, to school, and to other things they need. Secondly, I do want to stay on theme and talk about the response during this weather condition. Montgomery County made it a priority to keep this service operational to the maximum extent possible throughout the duration of this storm. We provided more service and better service throughout the duration, both during the storm and after the storm, than any other provider in this region. And some may ask why we did that, because probably not that many people are using it. The reason is because the people who are using it needed to use it. They needed to be somewhere for work. They needed to fulfill their own responsibilities. They needed to get to shelter. In fact, I encountered one of these people on Sunday night. And it was essential that we provide this essential service to the maximum extent we could, given these circumstances. I also want to comment on access to these during snow. We made an extra effort with our highway services crew to clear access to bus stops through the massive glaciers that are in between the bus stop and the road. There was no small feat, and I really want to thank our partners at Metro who reached out to us over the weekend and said, how can we help, and deployed their own crews to come and help clear bus stops in Montgomery County. So there's really a big effort on making sure that this component of the transportation system was as accessible as that people use their own private means to take advantage of. So thank you so much.
Sam Oji, Deputy General Manager, Division of Transit Services. I just want to use this opportunity, based on what you just heard from our director, to recognize all transit employees who have had to come in sometimes 2 in the morning to ensure that we meet services, that we don't miss any rides, considering the people that depend on us to get to from point A to point B. So I'd just like to recognize my colleagues who are the transit employees on this day. Thank you, everybody.
I think that's a great note to end on, making sure that everybody recognizes and appreciates our hardworking staff who work overnight, who work throughout the day in freezing temperatures, and who have had to battle the burns and the glaciers that have been created because of this historic snow and freezing cold situation. So with that, we will read the proclamation. County Council of Montgomery County proclaims proclamation, whereas February 4th is nationally recognized as Transit Equity Day in honor of Rosa Parks, whose courageous and nonviolent refusal to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, affirmed the fundamental principle that access to public transportation is a civil right. And
whereas the ongoing effort to advance transit equity reflects Montgomery County's commitment to ensuring that its public transit systems are inclusive and designed to meet the needs of all residents, regardless of race, ability, or income. And
whereas the median household income in Montgomery County is over $125,000, while the median income of ride-on customers is estimated to be $45,000, underscoring the importance of equitable transit access for residents with lower incomes. And
whereas Montgomery County advances transit equity through programs that expand access and affordability, including free ride-on bus service, a free connect-a-ride referrals, and subsidized call-and-ride taxi service for seniors with lower incomes and adults with disabilities. You want to bring it home?
Oh, sure. There we go. Whoops. Sorry. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Council Transportation Environment Committee and the entire Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby recognize February 4th as Transit Equity Day, and be it further resolved that the county encourages residents to actively support and utilize public transit as an essential resource for promoting equity in our community. Presented this day, signed by the T&E Committee, Evan Glass, Marilyn Balcom, Kate Stewart.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Do you want to take, let's switch. All right, now we get a picture.
Thank you so much to the T&E committee. We will move on to general business. Madam Clerk, would you please chair today's announcements?
Good morning. The council will receive testimony on the FY27 capital budget and FY27 to 32 capital improvements program on February 9th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. and on February 10th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. at the council office building. Those wishing to provide testimony must register in advance on the council's website or by calling 240-777-7803. Registration will close this Friday at 12 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no minutes for approval today, so we're going to move on to legislative session. We have agenda item 1, which is introduction, expedited bill 6-26, Fire and Rescue Services, Emergency Medical Services Insurance Reimbursement Program, use of revenues. Lead sponsors are council members Lutke, Katz, and Mink. Co-sponsor, myself, Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. A public hearing is scheduled for February 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. Is there anyone from, yes, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Expedited Bill 626 is being introduced today with Councilmembers Lukey and Mink and myself, all of us being on the Public Safety Committee, and we are all co-lead sponsors. And first, as we begin, I want to thank Ms. Wellens for working with us to come up with a very good bill. This bill would amend county law to permit an authorized local fire and rescue representative, which we also call LFRDs, to receive emergency medical service transport, which we also call EMSTs, reimbursement funding within certain permitted uses. The EMST reimbursement program allows the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service to bill insurance providers for ambulance transport, and this revenue is used to support operations within the department. Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association represent the county's 19 volunteer fire departments, helps to support them, and negotiate on their behalf with the county. The association, along with local fire departments, have been receiving a portion of this revenue. The Office of Inspector General released a report at the end of December opining that the MCV FRA was ineligible for EMST funds because it was not a local fire and rescue department. This bill would amend county law to permit distribution of the EMST funds to the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association as an LFRD to be used for specific purposes. I believe it was always intended that way anyhow, but obviously the Inspector General realized something different. The public hearing, as was mentioned, is scheduled for February 24th at 1:30 p.m. I don't know whether Councilmember Lukey and Councilmember Mink have anything to add, and then also, of course, whether Ms. Wellens had any additional comments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank everyone on the Public Safety Committee for making sure we handled this expeditiously and got this done quickly, and for Council President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez for co-sponsoring. As Chair Katz mentioned, this is being done in response to information we've received from an OIG report in 2025 in the fall, and sometimes things we do in law need clarification. Sometimes things we do need to be spelled out differently so that there's no ambiguity about the intent. And this had been the practice of Montgomery County and had been the way that we have been appropriating funding to our volunteer fire and rescue organizations for some time. And this simply makes it clear that that is to continue our intent, to continue to engage in that, and that this is the mechanism by which it will be done. And so I want to make sure, too, that everyone is very clear. One, how proud we are of our blended fire service here in Montgomery County, that we have a combined volunteer and career system, and that the county firmly supports our volunteer fire and rescue organizations with funding and resources to make sure that our volunteers
can continue to provide the same services that our career folks provide as well, because we can't do it all without them. They provide a tremendous amount of resource to the county. They are highly trained, and they may work as career firefighters elsewhere or in other occupations, but their dedication to our community is their top priority. For that, I am incredibly grateful. So we will fix this little issue with the way the code is worded. And I want to thank my committee colleagues, and back to Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. I just want to thank the Public Safety Committee for moving so swiftly on this, and Ms. Wellens, and would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Councilmember Marilyn Balcom.
Yes, please add me as a co-sponsor, and I really appreciate the leadership of the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Will Jowondo.
Thank you. Also appreciate the Public Safety Committee. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Lorian Sells.
I too would like to thank the Public Safety Committee and be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Ditto. Thanks to the Public Safety Committee. Please add me as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Councilmember Shara Evans.
Ditto as well. Add me as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council staff, anything else that you would like to add?
Just very quick, Madam President, just wanted to be, and I believe the lead sponsors already adequately explained this, but just wanted to kind of drill down on the terminology, just to clarify again, the funds under this bill explicitly are allowed to go to the LFRDs. Also, they could go to, or in addition or alternatively, they could go to the LFRD representative, which is MCV FRA, only for the narrow enumerated purposes to support volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you to the lawyer. This bill is introduced.
Madam President, I hit my button, but you didn't see it. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Thank you. Now that's everybody. Yeah, right? Okay, so this bill is introduced. Moving on, item 2 on today's agenda is a work session in action on the resolution to approve the FY 27-32 Capital Improvements Program Spending Affordability Guidelines. Chair Stewart, would you please share the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee's recommendations for the CIP?
Great. Thank you very much, Council President. On January 22nd, the GO Committee met to review the spending affordability guidelines and make a recommendation to the full council. As a reminder, the SAG is based on affordability, and we consider several fiscal and economic factors to determine what is affordable by the county and its residents before adopting the guidelines. The benefits of having the SAG are twofold. First, it enables strong fiscal policies and adherence to them that has enabled the county to maintain our AAA bond rating, even as we see our close neighbors losing theirs. And secondly, by setting the guidelines on affordability before we start focusing on the need, and we know the need is great, it allows us more flexibility with our operating budget as we were reviewing both the operating and our infrastructure budgets. The GO Committee had reviewed the SAG guidelines in the fall, and at that time, we did recommend an increase to allow for more borrowing for our general obligation bonds and more borrowing for parks and planning bonds. The council adopted that recommendation in October. Per our county code, the council may revise these guidelines by the first Tuesday in February if economic and fiscal conditions have changed significantly. That is why the GO Committee reviewed the guidelines on January 22nd. Unfortunately, the current economic and fiscal conditions have worsened since the fall. We know the need is great. We acknowledge that in our conversations. However, the SAG is based on affordability, and we have a process by which we will discuss need, and the overall CIP and general obligation bonds are just one way that we pay for our infrastructure projects and not the only way. As we go through the discussion of the full CIP, we are able to exceed the aggregate of the approved CIP SAG with 8 affirmative votes of the council. So with that being said, we had a robust discussion at our GO Committee. I want to thank our staff for all the terrific packet and analysis they put together. The committee's recommendation is that the council confirm what we did in October. Thank you.
Thank you. Is council staff, do they have a presentation, or would you like to go over anything at all that the council chair hasn't mentioned?
Well, the council chair, I think, adequately summarized the issue quite well. The only thing I would add is Each February, the council has the ability, if it chooses, to increase the SAG limits for years 1 and 2 by up to 10%. After that, once SAG is set, then it becomes a CIP issue at the end of the CIP process where the council could exceed SAG by a vote of 8, as Ms. Stewart mentioned. We did go through a presentation with the GO committee. We're happy to do that again now, but also I think perhaps just to answer questions as they come up from the council members.
Perfect. I see Councilmember Willjawando.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to our staff and to the GO committee for their work and the thorough analysis. Thank you to the executive staff as well for their work. I wanted to bring up a couple things related to the SAG and the economic conditions. I believe they have moved and changed in a way that justifies us raising the limit today. And I'll be making a motion to reflect that in just a minute or two. As we know, the key affordability guideline here is the county's goal that annual debt service payments remain at or below 10% of the general fund revenues. That came out of the Great Recession. It's a good common goal for our government, and we have done that. And in fact, at this level of SAG guidelines, if approved, if we stick with what we did in October, we'll actually go well below into the 9% range at a time when we have significant, obviously, need, but also I think the economic conditions have changed. One of the things I wanted to bring up that's different since what we did in October is, one, the state has come back showing a higher capital gains tax receipts, that they're trending higher than previously forecast. This represents a material improvement in fiscal position. Additionally, interest rates are trending downward. We've maintained our AAA bond rating, which is an important thing, means we borrow at the highest rates, the best rates possible, and that is a good thing as well. Additionally, as you're looking here, I'm not sure what chart's up there, but that might not be the chart I'm looking for, but those are the percentages. Oh, thank you. You pulled that up. Yeah, the 10% number.
That's the guideline.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling that up. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go below 10%. At the county executive's recommended rates for the CIP, we would end up, I think, around 10.3% is the number that I saw. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr.
Over
Mia?
time, by the end of 6 years.
By the end of the 6 years, which is still, I think, within our general guideline of 10%. At the ENC committee on Friday, and Mr. Levchenko was there, he saw it live, we asked the MCPS to give us, and Montgomery College, to come back with us for non-recommended cuts in the hundreds of millions. In MCPS's case, almost 652 million, to meet the county executive's CIP request. We did the same for Montgomery College. Those are going to be difficult cuts that they're going to have to, reductions that they're going to come back. I mean, a lot of schools aren't going to get the over 40 schools that need HVACs, the ceilings that are falling. They're going to make tough calls, and that's at the executive's number. The other thing we talked about was that it's a poor fiscal strategy to not fix things now. If we don't start bending the curve, they're going to cost more, and it's going to be worse, and it's going to be painful throughout the process. I think this is one of the many steps we're going to have to take over the course of this budget to address and try to bend that curve. And it will not happen in 1 year, but these guidelines are part of it. We are spending less by far than we were in inflation-adjusted dollars on the capital budget than we were 20 years ago. And I know I say this all the time, you can't buy anything today less than for what you bought it 20 years ago. And in fact, it's going to cost a lot more. And so I think the combination of these factors, the change in tax receipts from the state, interest rates trending down, the fact that it's going to cost more and be worse the longer we wait, and the fact that if we don't match the CIP request from the executive, we're going to have to make even deeper cuts at these levels at the end of the budget process. So for all of these reasons, I'd like to move to amend the spending affordability guidelines before us today as follows. FY27, $330 million, which is the maximum 10% required or allowed, excuse me. FY28, $330 million, the maximum 10% increase permitted, and then match the executive in the 6-year aggregate at $2,190 million to match the county executive's CIP. We're allowed to do that on the back end. That way, it gives us a better chance of still having to make some very difficult decisions in this budget, but it gives us a little better chance to start bending the curve. If we don't provide the flexibility now, we only need 6 votes to do that today. We're going to need 8 votes to do it after today. And I think that's a supermajority required for every capital dollar above $300 million. So I don't think that would be wise. Madam President, I make that motion.
We have a motion by Councilmember Will Jawando. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lorian Sells. I see. Would you like to speak, Councilmember Sells?
Yes, thank you. I too am concerned about the multi-billion-dollar price tag that the Board of Education sent over regarding their CIP. You know, every 6 years, we have an opportunity to set the course for how we're going to pay for infrastructure needs throughout the county. And this is one of the ways. No one ever wants to increase the amount of debt that we have, but looking at the numbers and the needs and seeing how inflation has continuously impacted services and projects, I do not want to delay when we have an opportunity now. Just thinking about even $390 million worth of cuts to the CIP. And I didn't even get to hear the list of recommended cuts that, you know, our educational systems are going to have to make. This is going to be a tough budget year. We know this, and I believe if we can be more prudent in our spending and take care of the costs that we can address now, especially with our schools. So many of our students are, you know, learning in classrooms. Our educators are learning in classrooms and facilities that are not equipped or conducive to learning. And so I hope we get the support to make this decision, and thank you for the amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thank you. I do agree that a level of GO bond issuance more closely aligned to the county executive's recommendation is appropriate and is fiscally responsible at this time. His recommendation does result in a debt service remaining as noted. It's very close to that 10%, and we're estimating 10.3% over that 6 years, which is well below the county's average over the last decade. And if we don't address capital projects now, the operating expenses as well as the construction costs from the deferred maintenance are going to pile up. So our GO bond levels are far lower than they have been historically on an inflation-adjusted basis, and the estimates, the 10.3, et cetera, are based on December numbers when revenue estimates tend to be the most conservative of the budget cycle. So I do believe that this is a reasonable and responsible action to take now. So I appreciate and will support Councilmember Jawando's motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Marilyn Balcom.
Just confirming we're on to discussion. Yeah. So, yes. Yeah. So I appreciate the bind that we're in terms of the school's request. And however, I'm not going to support the motion. I read the packet thoroughly. I watched the GO committee meeting, and it was compelling in terms of where we need to be right now in this discussion. And I think that the requirement of having 8 votes to go above this limit here, we should have a significant supermajority to go above what we're going to do. And I think that we have it's not a lot of time, but we're in a volatile economic condition right now, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 months. We'll have a much better picture at a later date. And when we look at the cuts that have to be made, I do have to just mention, and it was mentioned at the GO committee, the county executive presented a budget that was above what we could even possibly do. And I think that that was irresponsible. And so I feel more comfortable sticking with what the GO committee recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue, can staff repeat council members Yowanda's motion? So we're on the same page in terms of numbers. Unless
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So the first piece of it was increasing years 1 and 2 up to the maximum allowed as part of the February action, which would be from 300 to 330 million in each of those first 2 years. And then for the 6-year total, matching the executive's recommended 6-year total, which would mean filling in those later 4 years, which are not part of the actual limits, but are part of the overall 6-year total, increasing those to get to the 6-year total that the executive recommended, which was 2.19 billion.
Thank you. Just wanted to confirm, so we're on the same page. Next, Councilmember Stewart.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank my colleagues. This is a really important conversation, and thank the E&C committee for starting looking at the CIP on Friday. Just to bring up a couple of other things that we discussed on the committee for the full council. As a reminder, there are 6 indicators that we look at regarding the fiscal and economic outlook. Sometimes 1 or 2 of them may be pointing in the right direction, but there are 6 of them that we take into consideration. Also, I'm going to channel my colleague on the GO committee, Councilmember Katz, who always reminds us that debt service is the first thing we need to pay out of our operating budget. And so as we're looking at increasing our debt service, we just need to remember that that takes money out of our operating budget and ties our hands as we're thinking about the flexibility. So that is one of the reasons why, even though we are facing great need right now, the GO committee recommended we keep these guidelines where they are, and we have a conversation about need when we have both the operating budget in front of us as well as the infrastructure budget, so that we can look at and have flexibility going back and forth. And as a reminder that general obligation bonds are just one way that we fund the CIP. If we find that we're going through the operating budget, that we do want to put more money into the CIP, we can also increase PAYGO as well, and that does not tie our hands decades into the future. I agree, the need is great. We're not going to borrow, as Councilmember Joando said, our way out of this. We need to be looking at how we're funding our infrastructure, and that's one of the reasons why we have our infrastructure working group that is going to be providing the council recommendations on this. So just wanted to bring up those few other points that the GO committee reviewed, and again, really respect and thank my colleagues for this conversation.
Thank you. Councilmember Lorian Sells.
Yes, I didn't thank the GO committee for their calculations, but it's not just about the schools, it's other capital projects that will be impacted. And so that's why I was supportive, but I am looking forward to changes in PAYGO if this doesn't pass. Thank you.
Councilmember Donlucci.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't support the motion. I do support the GO committee's unanimous recommendation. And, you know, we've had to have a lot of really tough discussions with MCPS about the schools and about the current state of those buildings. And I recall recently having to explain this whole situation of the funding and the building and the logistics. And I'm going to focus on that word because I explained the borrowing piece and the payback piece, and it's not that if all the money in the world dropped out of the sky today that all those buildings would be fixed. Because if you talk to MCPS about the sheer logistics of it, and you sit with anyone from MCPS talking about their capital budget at any school where the PTA is there and they are trying to ask questions about how is this going to happen and when is it going to happen,
There are so many unanswered questions that have nothing to do with money at all that we need to work out during this budget session, that they need to come to the table with. And I, for one, absolutely want to get these things straightened out. But I heard from their own lips when asked if we could get you all the money right now to fix, for example, Sherwood High School's HVAC system. They said, well, it would take at least 18 months to start it, and then it takes 4 years to do it. Okay? I want that to sink in. Because what the public wants and what parents want, and I'm saying that because my kids are in these schools, is for stuff to get done. But I'm not paying for it until you tell me how you're going to get it done, right? And that's the problem. So I concur that there are ways to deal with this down the pike through this budget system, but it doesn't mean we change the GO Committee's recommendation now. We stay with the current spending affordability guidelines. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I appreciate the GO Committee's work on this, and it is an absolute statement of fact that the money we have allocated for our capital infrastructure needs over the last number of years and decades are not meeting the demands of today. That is absolutely true. And so I appreciate the recognition that we do need to increase those limits. And the question is, how much do we increase those limits by? That is what this conversation is about. And I want to pick up on a comment made by the Council Vice President and ask our staff about the county executive's budget and about the limits that were put in it and the money that was allocated. Did that budget conform with council or county rules and regulations regarding SAG?
Now, the executive's recommendation assumes higher bonds planned for issue than was in CIP SAG, and also higher than what the council could increase as of today as part of its February action. As you heard in the motion, the 6-year total could be accommodated, but not the year 1 and year 2 totals that the executive assumes in his recommended CIP.
So as originally submitted, the county executive's budget proposal would be unable to be enacted and adopted. Is that correct?
The council would have to exceed SAG as part of its final CIP actions with 8 votes.
Great. Thank you. I think that's really important because the best way we solve these problems is by working together and determining how much we need to put in the capital budget and what that offsets mean in the operating budget. And as has been noted, we are going to experience a very tough operating budget. We will learn the details of that on March 15th, but already in Annapolis, they're dealing with a $1.5 billion budget deficit. And when I was in Annapolis on opening day, I congratulated the speaker, and immediately after I congratulated the speaker, I asked her to please be kind to the counties. We'll see how much Annapolis and our partners there defer some costs to the counties, but that is still unknown at this point in time. And so there are a lot of budgetary unknowns, but it does not disabuse the fact that there are real capital budget problems. And I want to pick up on a point that was just made by Councilmember Luedtke. As I see it, there are 2 issues with the capital budget. One is the loss of purchasing power. Again, that's central to this discussion. But there's a bigger issue at play as well. And that is particularly with our school system, we never received accurate and transparent budgets that reflected the needs, growing needs, real needs of the school system. And these HVAC systems festered and failed for years before they were addressed. That's the problem we're trying to correct. And as we are dealing with this budget and the amount that we are going to take out in general obligating bonds and the interplay that has with our operating budget, we need greater budget transparency within our school system, within county government, so that everybody, particularly the council, understands what the true needs are and we can plan for them. Until we have that true partnership and true understanding, I am supportive of the committee that we do need to increase our CIP to provide some of those needs, but we also need to do a better job of working with MCPS and our other partners to do a better job planning for the future. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Before I turn it to Councilmember Katz, I wonder if Director Silverman has any remarks or any comments in response to what you're hearing?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Rachel Silverman with the Office of Management and Budget. Thank you for having us today. I do just want to reemphasize that although there has been some moderation in terms of the revenue forecast, drilling down again that this is within a 0.5 percentage of that key 10% indicator across the 6-year period. It does represent a substantial improvement over the indicator from our prior positioning, and that if this recommended GEO bond level is not approved, in addition to the $390 million, the total adjustment that will be required to the CIP is closer to $460 million due to our inflation and set-aside requirements. So I do appreciate the time here, and we're also happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I was quoted earlier about the first thing we pay is the debt. The other thing that I can quote myself on is that when I ran the first time, if I kept saying that if debt was a department in Montgomery County, it is not, but if it were a department in Montgomery County, it would be the third largest department that we have, and it scares me to death. We have over time, through a lot of hard work, have gotten our debt down, and I guess it was the 280 million figure, if that sticks in my mind. And when we had the discussions in government operations, I thought we should stay there. I thought that we've worked hard to get there, let's stay there. But after good discussions, I thought, well, 300 million becomes the best figure. I have always believed that using debt as a solution it does get you something now, but it means you're going to pay for it much more along the way because of the debt over the years. I know many people who their own personal finances have said, I'll put that on Visa, and of course they pay the minimum and they're always in trouble. I obviously will not be supporting this motion. I believe that if things change, that to the Vice President's point, that it should take 8 people to decide this, and then those discussions could be had at that time. But at this time, what the government operations, and which I'm on that committee, the government operations came up with, I believe is the right number. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you. First of all, just want to appreciate staff for really impressive work, and also want to thank the committee, my former committee. I was part of this process in the fall, have changed committee assignments, but really appreciate the newest committee member and the unanimous vote of the committee members on this. The fundamental question here is whether or not we are going to increase debt beyond the increase that was already voted on in the fall. There was a modest increase that was thought to be fiscally responsible that I supported strongly and championed at the committee in the fall. The council ultimately agreed upon that modest but fiscally responsible increase to reflect the fiscal conditions and the economic conditions. The question that the committee faced and voted unanimously on, the council now faces, is whether or not the fiscal and economic conditions today are dramatically better than they were in the fall when we made that decision. I don't think there's any person who could seriously and credibly suggest that the economic and fiscal conditions today are dramatically better than they were in the fall when we made this decision as a council. That is the decision before us. The other decisions that we have are what the needs are, which are huge and which are significant and which have been discussed here at length. There are other options that we have, and there have been other options that we have in addition to the debt in order to pay for those needs. One of them was a suggestion that this council made a couple years ago to add additional cash into the capital budget, $80 million in PAYGO. The county executive rejected that and decided to use that money for ongoing expenses in the operating budget, which increased the structural deficit and the fiscal challenges that we currently face. We are going to have to make tough choices moving forward. There is no doubt about that. But the question before us today is whether or not we should further increase our debt at a time when the fiscal and economic conditions are worsening, not improving, and where it wouldn't be credible to suggest that things have gotten dramatically better since the fall. So I will support the committee recommendation, really appreciate the thoughtful work. I recognize fully that we have very difficult and challenging decisions ahead, and we need to make sure that we make those decisions accordingly.
Thank you. Councilmember Shara Evans.
Absolutely. Okay, so welcome. Yes, as a former school board member, as a committee member on GO and Education and Culture Committee, this is an example of a really tough decision. So I do, serving on, I'll start with GO. Serving on GO, I did raise my hand to support the limit that we put in place. And I still support that limit. As a former school board member, we just sat here last week listening to Dr. Taylor, discuss the CIP needs. The needs are real. And so I do agree with my colleague, Councilmember Jawando, that doing less now will cost more later. But as a council member who just recently was appointed, and I know probably next month I won't be able to say that I'm new too much longer, I do want to be able to go through the entire process because the needs are so great. I want to go through the CIP as well as the operating budget and then come to a decision as to what we should do. And so while I am very passionate and supportive of the school system and I know those needs, me not voting now is not saying no, that I'm not supportive of the CIP. And what I can say as the former president on the school board, I went before our legislators in Annapolis at the time when we were talking about the Build to Learn Act. When I went there to testify, our HVAC needs were really great. So I tried to explain to the legislators as well as to my other colleagues across the county what the needs look like. I thought that Dr. Taylor did a great job at just kind of laying out, this is where we're at. In the past, I'm going to take some of the words that Dr. Williams said last week at the ENC. What I took pride in as a former school board member is that when we came to sit before the council, that we asked for what we needed. HVAC was always included in that, but just like I'm sure how I have to make decisions here, sometimes decisions were made to where we made some adjustments in our budget, particularly when it wasn't fully funded. So I just wanted to make certain that as I sit here as a council member, that as a school board member, that I did speak up and speak out and say that we did our best in bringing forward budgets that we felt like what was representative of what the school system needed at that time. And as a council member, I will try to work I will work and collaborate with the school board to make sure, and the superintendent, to make sure that things are crystal clear. Because I do know that sitting on this side, it's a little bit different to dissect the budget, but I do know that they are good people working really hard to make sure that their efforts are reflected in their budget. But I wanted to go on record to say that I appreciate all the different perspectives that are here on the council. So
me not voting in support of the motion is not me supporting my colleagues, but really taking a deeper dive, as this is my first budget, to see what all the needs are, because they're so pressing. I've been on both the budgets. I get emails. I've sat on Zooms, had in-person meetings, and everybody is coming forward with all their pressing needs, and they all seem important. We want to help all, and so I just want to take the time to really take a deeper dive before I make the decision to go above the limits that the GO committee approved.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'm gonna give I'm about to. I'm gonna give the last word or two to Councilmember Jawando and then Councilmember Lori Sells, and then I'm gonna ask for a vote.
Thank you, Madam President. This has been a great discussion. I appreciate all my colleagues chiming in on it. And I've been listening intently, and I just wanted to make a couple points this is the beginning of a process, not the end. And I appreciate Councilmember Evans' point there. I'll take that as a half vote, a half victory there, that we might have hope for another day. But one thing I wanted to ask Ms. Silberman and council staff, if they wanted to chime in, was on the fiscal and economic conditions piece. That's been brought up. I've made a couple of points of why I think it has changed. Could you speak to anything that you want to raise regarding that? Obviously, the macroeconomics of the Trump administration are horrible, but we're making this on a very specific set of indicators, some of which have changed since we moved in October.
Yes, thank you. So in September, September when GEO first took a look at the indicators, and then the full council affirmed in October, we had only had 6 months of the Trump administration and all of the shifts that came along with that. And in addition to what the indicators looked like at that time, there was sort of a wait and see, let's see how things are unfolding. At the time of the December update, things were modestly moderated in terms of the revenue projection for the general fund, which impacts that 10% indicator. Population had increased, and so the measures that are related to population did actually improve. But the indicator that most people key into here is the 10%, and so that's where most of the focus has been. I think things are not as bad as people had anticipated they might be at this point, and December is a point in time. As you're seeing, these indicators are constantly changing as the Department of Finance takes in more and more information on our revenues. And so, the revenue picture will look still different in March. And it's not totally clear how different they will be at this point, because we're still waiting for information from the state. So I would say that we have a little bit of a clearer picture than we did at this time in September. I think things are looking more stable than they would have at that time, but the economic picture continues to evolve.
I appreciate that, and obviously I know it's an art, not a science here, but even though there are some indicators. The other point I wanted to make is AAA bond rating means we borrow at the best rates possible, correct? Right?
Yes.
And rates that have been trending downwards, hopefully will keep trending downwards. The other thing is the cash versus the pay-go. Cash pay-go versus taking on debt. Again, this is a puzzle that it all fits together. But obviously, if we put more cash in, that comes from people's tax revenue. That's less things we can spend on other programs, food, whatever. Go down the list of needs. And so there is a trade-off there. One of the reasons I think all of us understand we have to balance this. But if we put more cash into the CIP to build things, it means less programmatic at a time when we know the worst impacts of the big ugly bill are kicking in November, and I am not eager to have to make those cuts that we are going to have to look at. And then the other thing is taxes, right? This is a way of increasing our spending capacity without increasing taxes on residents. We still may have to do that, but I think it's going to be very hard to sit here as we go through this process if we're saying we don't want to raise the debt that we're taking on when we borrow at the highest rates and things are more stable than we thought and interest rates are trending down and we're getting more income tax capital gains revenue than we thought we were, and we're against raising taxes to pay for anything. And then that's a tough place to be in at a time when the wealthiest among us are getting huge tax breaks. So it's all connected. And I think this is a key point in time. I know this is the beginning of that conversation, but for our public, I think that's important. And then the final point I want to make, transparency in MCPS is here. This $5 billion request is as transparent as it's ever been. A couple years ago, when I took over as chair of E&C, we started including the actual maintenance charges in the out years of the CIP, which were not being included. They were just doing it. We took that step. I think we've made dramatic progress. And some might argue it's too transparent because now we're seeing what the need is. And everyone involved, previous councils, previous school boards, previous superintendents, enabled where we are today. Because it's like a child that doesn't want to come to their parents because they know the PlayStation costs too much, so they don't ask for the PlayStation. And so they just ask for something that's a lot cheaper. And everyone played that game for a long time. And thank goodness we're not playing that game anymore. We have to pay for what we need, and that's kind of where we are. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Can council staff please display table 3? And let me just remind people there are less revenues available to cover debt service today. That's the situation that we're facing. As you do that, I'm going to ask Council Member Lorian Sells to make her comment, and I really want to have a vote very soon. Just keep that in mind.
Just very briefly, I wanted to second Council Member Jawando's amendment just to have the conversation. I'm glad we had the conversation. It doesn't look like it's going to pass, and so I'm looking forward to more discussion around this and ensuring we focus on our capital needs now. We're going to have a lot of difficult decisions to make in the coming months, and so thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's Circle page 6, by the way. Councilmember Gates Stewart.
Great. I don't want to prolong this. I know we have other things to do, but I did want to say that as we're looking at things like capital gains tax that has been put on the table, that's potentially one-time money that we're seeing, and that is exactly why we increase PAYGO and have those conversations. And so whether or not we're going to raise taxes or not what we're debating today. That will come in the spring when we're looking at need, and is exactly the reason why the Government Operations Committee is recommending we stay at the current guidelines, because we have not seen a marked increase in a positive direction. We can say they stayed the same. I would say they've worsened, but we could at least say they stayed the same. But what is in our county code is if we're going to change our spending affordability guidelines, we should actually be seeing a change in a good direction, and that is not what's being picked up right now. We will continue these conversations of taxes, PAYGO, how we all do this in the spring. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. In case it's helpful to anybody, I am not willing to increase taxes this year either. So letting you know. Last word, please, Councilmember Evan Glass.
Important conversation. Thank you, Madam President, for indulging all of us. Two points. One, I appreciate the committee chair for her comments just now laying out the next few months. I think it is incredibly important before we vote on this amendment and then vote on the proposal to once again very definitively state the increased levels that the GO committee is recommending, right? Let it not get lost on anybody that we are increasing our bonding capacity to meet the needs. And secondly, I just want to say thank you to Councilmember Evans. I think your perspective from all of the positions you have held brings the most unique perspective to this discussion. And in balancing the needs of the school system, of our taxpayers, of our council, I agree with you and everything that you said. And this conversation will continue. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Evan Glass. And a reminder, the GO Committee confirms the Council approves SAC from October 7, 2025. With that, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor of the motion made by Councilmember Jawando, please raise your hand. We have 1, 2, 3. Those against, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The motion fails. Is there anything else from council staff before we move on?
Sure. I just wanted to add, the discussion has been on geo bonds. We do have parking planning bonds also as part of the SAG. Those were increased in October, and the the executive is matching what the council's actions were in October, so there's no issue at play with those.
With that, we have a recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Moving on, we have next for the council's consideration is the consent calendar. Before we take action on the consent calendar, I would like to speak about item C, action on a resolution to endorse the DMV moves plan for transit in the National Capital Region. As you all know, we had a presentation from COG about 3 weeks ago, I want to say, recently. And they have a resolution. We shared the resolution with all of you, as well as the chair of Environment and Transportation in the Maryland General Assembly, State Delegate Corman, and also with the Department of Transportation. And I think at the end of the day, it's safely to say, because we have this resolution, that we do want to create a sustainable funding model and unified vision for the region's transit network, and that actually is connected to economic development too. And so I just wanted to highlight that as an important step forward. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Moved by Council Vice President Balcon, second by Council Member Don Lukey. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes. Yes, Council Vice President, go ahead.
So I just wanted to recognize Glenn Orlin today. We just voted him on the Rustic Roads Advisory Committee, and I know that he'll do a great job. Thank you.
You're going to have so much fun. Thank you for your work. Yes. The next item today is a proposed closed session. The council intends to meet in closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of an appointee, employee, or official over whom it has jurisdiction under Section 3-305B1 of the General Provisions article of the Maryland Code. The topic is the interview of applicants for a position at the Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearing over whom the council has jurisdiction. Is there a motion to meet in closed session?
So,
moved by Council Member Yawanda, second by Council Member Don Lukey. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. The council would meet in closed session in the council conference room on the third floor right now, and the council will return to our open session at 11:30 a.m. to celebrate Black History Month. We'll be back.